So, welcome everybody. We're absolutely thrilled that you are here joining us today, or whether you're watching live. I'm Rachel Justice, and along with Jillian Levinson, I co lead the Woman to Woman Gynecologic Cancer Support Program. And today we have a really relevant, interesting, and just important topic. It is actually being led by one of our incredible survivor volunteers, Sharon Demanis. And again, she is a survivor. She is a volunteer with Woman to Woman. We are very lucky to have her as part of our team. And she'll explain why she's in a unique position and has a lot of expertise in the area of insurance tips and how to advocate with the insurance companies as a cancer patient. So again, Sharon, thank you so much. You've just informally have shared so many helpful resources, so much good information that we thought it was time to make you, give you a platform for a formal presentation on this really important subject. And I know that you put a lot of thought and effort into it. So we are really, really appreciative. So I'm going to turn the mic over to you, and hopefully we'll have lots of time at the end for questions and answers. But again, just a hearty thank you to you for being here and for doing this.
Well, I am so grateful. I've had a lot of experience in my life, which sort of turned me into, an advocate. And the interesting thing is that I have trouble saying the word advocacy. I've been practicing it all week and not doing so well, but I do it well. But if I don't say it well, don't let that deter us here. Um, but I like my background is just very varied, right? I was an investment banker buying and selling multi-billion-dollar companies. I led HR for benefits for a couple of years, and I've been an Aflac agent, which is basically I sell cancer insurance for a living. So I get to see this. And of course, being a cancer survivor as well, I being able to see the advocacy, from a 360-degree holistic approach. So that's why I just have, a lot of different experience. And I find that if you just open your mind, you're going to learn something from every single person that you meet every day. And you just like keep that in your head so that you have it when you need it. And that is one thing that I do. Just about everyone I meet is in my phone. So if someone needs something, I can come up with it, in just a second and a referral. And that happens, a lot. And so even in my business owners, I'm not an Aflac agent. I'm really an extension of what they do. And I've also been very, very fortunate to have fabulous care with Dr. Zeligs at Mount Sinai. Um, and so on November 18th, 2020, Dr. Zelig sat across the intake table from me just before I went into the operating room and said, I want to thank you for the way that you advocated for your woman's health. That's the reason why we're here, the reason why your cancer was detected this early. And she just said that she doesn't get to say that enough. I think about that every single day. And so hopefully we'll get some things out of this discussion today. If you see me look to the left, I'm just checking on the clock to see how much time I have, to really help you feel empowered. You have a right to this. You have resources. If you ever played 6 degrees of separation, you're going to realize that there's only about two or three. And so sometimes when we go through this cancer journey, it can be so overwhelming. My cancer, vulvar cancer, is so rare. When it was diagnosed, the doctor looked at me and said, wow, we've never even seen this before. That's not like a great place to start. But for me, I was like, okay, it's rare. Let's find out where it is. Who knows about it? And between Friday diagnosis, Monday, I was in one of the, well-known top authorities for this cancer. And in the end, he couldn't operate. He was out of network, but he put me in touch with the head of that department at Mount Sinai. I name dropped his name and used it, I think, to get in there. A little, maybe a little bit of artistic license. Hey, I've been recommended and I have this cancer. And Dr. Zelig saw me 3 days later. And in the end, in the middle of COVID, I was able to get diagnosed from this rare cancer in 19 days. I was done and dusted with my treatment. So advocacy, advocating for yourself, does play a really important role. So, I'm just going to start with like, what is advocacy, right? It is, recommending, it's speaking in favor of, supporting, defending. If you're a mom, if you're a wife, we've advocated for our family all the time. And sometimes I think we can fall a little bit short advocating for ourselves. And so, we're going to advocate for the best care possible and, that we deserve and we need it. So I find one of my, I'll have like, I call my little golden tips. Like when it comes to negotiation, I like to negotiate in such a way to get the best care possible for myself. But in the end, I want them to think that it's their idea to give it to me. It's their idea to let me in that door. And they get that feel good moment and everyone, gets, everyone's a winner. So when it comes to our journeys on gynecological cancer, just step back for a minute and I want to take a 360-degree view, right? Because it's not just your cancer treatment. It's your family, it's your nutrition, it's your mental health, and there's so many things. And it's hard to think about, and the insurance and the scary part about that. And I'm definitely, don't worry, I saved a bunch of tips and tricks for that as well. Okay. Um, so I always like to start with you. Number one that I found for people, for myself and for people that I've supported is you got to trust your gut. You got to trust your gut. You have to know your body and you have to continue to get answers and don't be deterred. I was told for over 8 months, oh, it's a urinary tract infection, it's this, it's that. And I went through so many different things. And oh, it's just, a vaginosis. And I was like, no, it's not. I don't get that stuff. And I just kept barreling on till I found someone that would give me a biopsy. Wasn't looking for cancer for sure, famous last words, but I just kept pushing until I got a real answer. And the other thing is that we all think is, have you all ever seen the show Dr. House? Right? So there is no Dr. House. I'm just going to tell you that little tidbit right now. There is no Dr. House, right? You have doctors, you have a stable of doctors, you have a stable of people that help you. And they may know some of what the other doctors know, right? But a lot of times it's going to be up to you to sort of put some of that together and in context and help them. And I'll just give you another example because nothing is normal with me and my life is an open book. So I'm happy to use myself as an example. In the middle of when I was trying to figure out what was wrong with me, around the same time, I had this issue with my fingernails and my nails were coming up off the bed. And I figured out, well, while I'm going through all these doctors, going through my deductible, might as well figure that out. Well, there is no hand doctor, no nail doctor. And there's one woman in all of New York who is the only person that does this, who takes no insurance. And as it turns out, she said, of 100 people, 99, I would say it is not nail psoriasis. But because I told her I had Hashimoto's, and I think it was like, right around the time of this other issue. And she said, you know what, it sounds like inflammation. So we sort of were able to sort of put together, and 2 years after I had my cancer treatment, I had another issue. Oh, it's a UTI. Oh, it's not, blah, blah, blah. I went to my gynecologist and she said to me, and I said, this doesn't feel right. And she said, Sharon, if it wasn't for you, I would never biopsy this. But she says, do you want a biopsy? And I said, yeah. And so she biopsied it. And then we found out that I had lichen sclerosis, which can be a precursor to the vulvar cancer, which potentially with my Hashimoto's. And so everything that sort of is happening with me, the only things that are wrong, have to do with inflammation, and so it was, And then I went to my nutritionist, who I found a nutritionist on, I found her on Instagram because I liked what she had to say. No bad foods, no shame, not about food shaming. And it's very individualized. She takes all insurance because she thinks that that good nutrition should be available to everyone. And she's on Zoom. All right. So, probably one of the best things that I have done as someone who grew up too skinny and just eating really bad food. So, I've changed a lot of that. But also, I posed to her this question, this other inflammation. I said, is there any kind of a nutritional anti-inflammatory protocol? And she says, well, there is, but no one ever does it because it's like too hard. I said, okay, well, I'll tell you what, my husband and I are apart for 2 weeks. I'll do it for 2 weeks. So it's just like the openness to sort of try something else and ask that question. And when I saw Dr. Zelig and my gynecologist, I shared the same thing. Hey, by the way, it seems like there's a lot of things in here, and they all agreed, they're all sort of autoimmune and inflammatory. And I'm going to try this autoimmune protocol. And, you know, the protocol wasn't going to be for me ultimately, but there are elements of that protocol that I have taken into my life. And so things like, for me, alcohol is a big trigger, right? So it's a big trigger for inflammation. So I had a nice girls' weekend, had a couple of drinks, and I can already see, like, I can see it in my fingernails. I could see it. So it's sort of like taking care of your health, holistically. Your doctors, great references. Talk to them, ask them questions. But the number one thing is I tell everyone, keep a blog, have a book. If you're going in to see your physician, you want to have a list of questions. All right. And because remember, it's not how much time they spend with you, it's how much you can accomplish in the time that they're there. So I found that is sort of bringing this 360 degrees together and sort of helping to sort of focus. And that's where we ultimately came up with, where my cancer may have come from, just from putting these different pieces together. Um, so any questions so far? Is that sort of the stuff you wanted to hear about? Yeah? Okay. Good, good, good. So you want to, of course you want to establish, a positive relationship with your doctor. One thing you got to remember, like sometimes you just don't like them, but you just try and work with them if they're a good doctor. Now, if it comes untenable, then, then there may be something, but I always try and figure out a way to work with them if they're good at what they do. And I always tell if anyone has a good endocrinologist, send them my way because I cannot find one. that I like. But at Mount Sinai, like everyone that I've worked there, have just always been fabulous. But you have your agenda, your questions, your log. If you miss something, just throw it in the portal. I mean, that's if it's a non-emergency, that's a great way to get contact. For me, in my particular care, sometimes you have to think out of the box a little bit. And so for my cancer, an area of my body that I wasn't um, so in tune to exactly like what it looked like and what was happening and that um, we ended up using like
Milkshake.
pictures and mirrors. Not something that you would normally think about doing. I just had a revisionist surgery a few weeks ago, and there was no new cancer. It was just it was a very tough heal and a very long heal. They just want to get it healed, and we sort of knew that would have to, be tuned up at some point. So this was a time we decided to do it. We waited for ski season to end. But when I went in there and I said, by the way, I took a picture this morning so you can show me what we're going to do. And so for the two of us, like we were speaking the same language. All right. So you want to, find a way to communicate, find a way that works for you. Like I would go into her office, she would talk to me. I didn't understand some of the words that she was using in terms of the anatomy. I would bring a mirror in my purse. And I said, "Okay, pass me the mirror. Show me what you're talking about, or show me a picture." So, they want to communicate. um and so, they need some sort of help in knowing how they're getting, how they're getting through them, through. The other thing is, a lot of times people go into their doctor and they say, my friend had this and I want it too. Right? So probably not, because everyone is so different. People come to me all the time and go, "Yep, I know it. I've got the same cancer that you do." And I'm like, "Yeah, probably not." Makes up 0.3%, so there's a good chance that you don't. But let's go down that exploratory path. And so, what you want to, a lot of times you could pose it in terms of like a question. When you're talking about your future care, the hardest thing to do, you got to sit back and listen and let them tell you what's going to happen. I walked into Dr. Zelig's office armed with a protocol from another doctor, but I only had cancer for 4 days. That's all I knew. And then I realized I was telling her what to do, and I said, "Hold on a second." And I said, "I've had cancer for 4 days. This is all I know." And I said, "You are an amazing doctor in your own right. Like, what would you do? What do you suggest?" And so, and she basically said, "I'll have what he's having. I'll up at a PET scan." And I'm like, "Oh, that's great. I love that." And we pushed it out a week because my insurance, was not so easy to deal with. But just remember that not what's good for someone else, like, isn't going to be good for you, but it doesn't mean that it's a bad question to ask. I've had colleagues that have had great great success with XYZ protocol. All right. And, they'll say, like, "Oh, I think it's good for this, but not good for that." Or, "Well, maybe you could do this." And, they can sort of see whether that's something. But I think, there's a lot of protocols that are pretty standard. And so I think that, but I think that it's, always remember, and here's another one of, I call it my golden nuggets, asking for help and asking for questions. That's a sign of strength, not a sign of weakness. All right. After my surgery, it was, particularly delicate, like where it was. I had a question, I had questions on like intimacy questions, and I just asked Dr. Zelix. I'm concerned about like moving forward. And she goes, "Okay, she put me in touch with someone." And the woman was great. She was at Mount Sinai. She was fabulous. And that's a tough topic for me personally, to talk about. But she did a good job with me, navigating through that, and I would call on her again for sure. Um, so that's sort of like on the personal side. So you want to make sure that your mental health is in place, your family's in the right place, you're, asking the right questions, keeping track, and like, and then there's like the insurance part. So sort of, I figure we're probably about halfway through. So I just thought I'd check in. Um, does anyone have any questions? None? I'm that good. Alrighty. So here we're going to talk a little bit about negotiating and advocating in both of your regular and your traditional insurance. And then I'm sort of going to end with some tips and tricks. Okay. So, couple of things. I know insurance. Anyone here think insurance is scary? Yeah. Right? Like it can be. Well, just remember, first of all, it's a rarity that you actually go to jail for not paying like your hospital bill. So you have a little time on them, all right? You have a little time. Also remember that particularly since COVID, medical billing is terrible. So when someone calls you up and says you owe them a ton of money, like, you make them prove it to you first. All right. I see this all the time because what I do is supplemental insurance. And so like my what I do, it just pays on top of or regardless of any other coverage. But my clients will come to me, what stems a lot of times is that they have a big bill from their medical, but my company doesn't care what their bill is from the medical. We're going to pay you a certain amount of cash anyway. But that sort of but it does allow me to help them. Like if you have a $12,000 medical bill, impossible. The maximum out of pocket per person is 9,200 per year. So clearly something hasn't been run through your insurance. All right. And I find particularly when you get calls after treatment very, very quickly, a lot of times it hasn't gone through the insurance or it hasn't finished going through the insurance. And so, it's important to understand your insurance. Think about your insurance. Most of the words people know, right? Deductible, copay, coinsurance. Anyone have any sort of questions on the sort of definition part?
Yeah, could you actually define each of those? I mean, I think
Sure,
especially things like co-insurance, and I'm a
sure.
social worker. I've been doing this for a long time and I still find it confusing. So if you could actually go through kind of the glossary of terms for insurance, that would be great.
Yep, and I'm going to I sort of made up this. It was sort of half hijacked from a client. So I'm going to send it to you, Rachel, as well. I'll email it to you. Okay. So your premium, right? Your premium is what you pay every month. You pay medical insurance premium. Whether you have Medicare, I happen to be on the exchange. Some people have it through their employer. It's what you pay every month. Okay. Now, that is just the cost of being covered. You pay that amount of money, and what you get for that is to have insurance. Okay. Think of it like car insurance, right? You pay amount to the car insurance people to insure your car, whether or not you drive it. All right. So a lot of the stuff you're paying for, whether or not you use it. So let's use your insurance. Um, Next one is your deductible. Okay. Your deductible is the amount of money that you pay out of pocket before your insurance starts paying. Now, a couple of things that are outside of that. All right. Your physical once a year. All right. Your female wellness physical once a year. And this is non-sick visits. Okay. So I guess I'm probably going to end up dispersing a little tips and tricks in here. When I go to see my GP for my physical, I don't talk to him about anything else. So it gets billed as a physical and it is completely free. All right. Your annual screening mammogram, all right? Just the annual screening, a wellness screening, you should not pay anything for. Your annual colonoscopy, same thing. All right. So, so your copays, that's a set dollar amount that you're expected to pay for doctor visits, for office visits. Okay. So normally you'll see everyone has like $30 that they pay to go see their GP. Um, and then they have like maybe $65 to go see a specialist. Okay. Now, I'm going to tell you under tips and tricks as well. I'm going to highlight it's a great idea. I have one single credit card that where all medical expenses go. The premium, the co-pays, every time I pay any doctor, it is all in one place because there's a lot. There's a lot that goes on. And if you have it all in one place, that just takes one little easy step to do that. The co-insurance is a set percentage of service that you pay once you've met your deductible. Okay. So your plan is going to be set up so that, let's just say you have a $2,000 deductible. So you pay the first $2,000 and maybe then you have co-insurance of 20%. And it's 20% of usual and customary, which is your negotiated rate that your insurance has contracts with all your doctors. And by the way, go in network, like really stay in network. All right. It is very, very expensive to not do that. So your co-insurance, now your co-insurance is a smaller amount, it's like a percentage that you pay that's not covered by your insurance. And once you meet as an individual 9,200, you've met your out of pocket maximum. They can't charge you anything more. So everything that you do is, completely free, so to speak. Okay. So one of the things, one of the things that I do is look at my deductible for the year. And I happen to know that this year I've hit my deductible, right? I had a small surgery. My deductible is like 2000. And so right now to, I am scrambling to book any other appointment that I can for the rest of this year because my deductible has been met. Um, so you want to, want to make sure that you can be thoughtful that. And if your appointments due in December, or if your appointments due in January and you've met your deductible, most times you're going to be able to, you can always ask to move that appointment to December to fill your deductible. And don't be afraid to talk to not so much your doctor, but your doctor's office about it. Insurance is a way of life. You know what? Dr. Zelig was so all over my insurance. They gave her such a hard time. My surgery got approved at 4 o'clock the night before the surgery. So they were just really, really, really tough with her. So they know that insurance is important, and they know that it's expensive, and they're on board. Although, can't ask your doctor to like take a haircut, that's not really up to them. But, but understand like what's in network. Like we've talked about care. I wanted another PET scan. I wanted another PET scan because I loved knowing that one time there was no cancer anywhere else. And she said, your insurance will never approve it. She said, but what I would recommend is to do genetic counseling. And genetic counseling, the best thing I've ever done. I've ever done. Because in my family, we have a ton of pancreatic and colon cancer, and I've always been concerned. And I came out of that with the understanding that not only do I have zero genetic cancer anywhere, like nothing for breast cancer. So for me, it was like a good outcome. But just knowing what to expect, and having, me say, hey, I want this. And she suggested. And I'm glad I had that conversation with her, because if I hadn't, I wouldn't have had the genetic counseling. So, and many of you may have had that already. Sometimes your insurance may have a per occurrence deductible. A lot of times you might see this hospital stays or emergency rooms. They may just say, okay, your deductible automatically for, think of it as sort of like a copay, but it's the deductible for things like hospital and ER visits. Okay. That out of pocket maximum, that's next on my list. I think I went through that already. And there's something else I wanted to talk to you about, and I think this can be really empowering. I think has anyone here ever heard of the No Surprise Billing Act? Yay, Joan. Have you ever run up against it, Joan?
Yeah, with an anesthetician
Mhm.
after endoscopy. I mean, it was like $10,000 for 20 minutes, So it was contested, and
And fixed, right?
yeah. I
Yep.
I did my paperwork and submitted it, and it went away.
Joan, you are an inspiration to everyone here. All right. Because I see a lot of people that say, oh my God, I need to go to finance. I need to figure out how to do this. And so you're absolutely right. The same thing happened to me with the routine colonoscopy. So we do see it a lot. That's actually a place that we do see it a lot. So you'll be at a hospital or a facility that's in network, and maybe the doctor or the anesthesiologist a lot is not in network.
Yeah.
And so they're basically held hostage to the amount that your insurance would pay an in-network provider. We also see it a lot when people go to the emergency room. All right, say you're traveling and you need to go to an emergency room. They have to insure you for emergency care. And so they have to insure you like they would if they were in network, if it's an emergency. So, but the No Surprise Act, that's a federal law effective since 2022. And, particularly bills that arise out of network care. So it limits the amount that people owe for things, co-payments and deductibles. Now, there is something different. Some people have what's called balance billing. Is that something that anyone else has ever heard of? No? Okay. Joan, tell me, do you mind? Are you okay sharing?
Yeah. Um, through my last chemo and treatment and doctors and add-on doctors for secondary things that happened, even in terms of copay, I was racking up a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I really didn't want to deal with it every month. Such a large chunk in a
Yeah.
month.
Oh, yeah.
So I did balance billing. They asked me how many months I wanted to take to pay it back. I said 6 months.
Mm.
So they split it out and they subtract it automatically from my bank account every month.
Right. Well, what it sounds like what you're talking about was that they took your balance and financed it,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And let you pay it. It's just a little bit different from balance billing.
Oh,
But that financing, and
mhm.
also do it. Do it. Like if they have particularly if you have a big bill and you have the option, a lot of them have zero interest rate. And
Right.
yet and if it's direct debited, you can do it over a period of time. So that's a great idea. There's another thing, balance billing, and it has a relationship with surprise billing, but not as much. Usually in balance billing, is when some people want to go to an out of network specialist for whatever reason.
Mhm.
Right. And so when you go to an out of network specialist, say they'll use, if you're using an out of network provider, then basically that provider is allowed to bill you for the amount that your insurance would not have covered. All right. Now, normally the No Surprise Act for an in-network provider would take care of that, right? Because you have medical insurance, they're in network, and but in the balance billing aspect, it's really more about your choice to go out of network. And I don't, with the networks as robust, it's something I see every so very rarely, very rarely. But I'm loving that you brought up the financing aspect, because I think that is a really important concept to understand.
I have one question.
Sure.
So I have met my in-network deductible.
Hmm.
Does that mean going forward for the rest of the year, I won't have any copays?
So your deduct well the your in well I would have to actually look at your plan, but how I would think it would work is this. So you've met your in-network deductible, and so from there on out, because your actual copays go against your deductible, so I would say probably not. And then what's going to happen is, but you could be responsible for the co-insurance amount, which is usually 10% or 20% of the bill, up to $9,200. So you could be responsible for the co-insurance amount.
Happily, I don't have to address the coinsurance amount. I'm just talking about doctor's visits now that I have my in-network deductible, just the visits, the 25, 15, 35.
Yeah. So I I'd have to look at your policy, but I would say if you've met your deductible but not your out of pocket max, they may still they may still ask for those copays. But
So,
that's a great question to ask.
so in-network deductible is like 2 or 3,000 out of,
Mhm.
and the other one,
The out of pocket max one.
yeah, is 9,200.
Mm-hmm.
So
For
those
an
are the two.
individual.
Okay. Those are the two things that you're talking about.
Yep, the two sort of really big important amounts. So normally what happens is, oh God, go ahead, Joan, sorry.
No, no, thank you.
No, because normally what happens is you have a lot of stuff, you're getting a lot of it through your that I always just feel like I should just write a check for $2,000 to the insurance company every year and just tell them to leave me alone, quite frankly. Because I feel like, you know, we tend to, you know, if you have any illness, you're going to go through it. And also a lot of people don't realize it. Your checkups after your cancer treatment, that's not a $30 copay anymore. You know, every time I go back every 3 months, and then 6 months, and then once a year to see Dr. Zelig's, it's a total of like $400 or $500 a lot of times because of where she is. It's considered a clinic, and they
Wow.
actually bill it as a clinic. Now her copay for the doctor visit is like normal, but
Mhm,
I can only see her in the clinic and the way that that's billed through the insurance company. So that was a rude awakening for me,
mhm,
you know. But I asked the question. Like I talked to the I talked to the insurance people. I asked that question, and it
mhm.
took me a while to get my head around that one,
That's amazing.
you know. And so that's the thing. Like what I always say, like understand your insurance, take advantage of your insurance. Mine pays you $25 to do like some survey. That's done, man. I'm like, oh, it's my husband. Honey, you didn't do yours. I'll do yours too. Like, I'm getting my money back. Stay in network, ask questions. You know, being in network is a fact of life. And then whenever you have to call your insurance company, or someone, you know, at like your doctor's office, the insurance for the hospital, for example, remember this book. Take their name, take a reference number every time.
Mhm,
All right.
mhm.
Because, you know, no one is incentivized to remember you, you know, like you can give them the reference number, they can always look it back.